in brightest day, in blackest night, all other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power, oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal, yellow scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mars face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Marble.
I'm Chad Bokelman.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 551.
Destined to be known as, luckily, the episode that didn't come out in Black History Month. Trust us, you will understand why. Even though you'd never know by the slate that we have planned, or to start with. Oh, God. So I suppose we should just roll into it for what it's worth. So we're going to be doing Green Lantern War Journal numero 6. If it was a 12-issue maxi, or mini, depending on one's perspective, we'd be halfway through, but it's still an ongoing as far as we know. So I will give the creative team, which I usually gloss over in situations like this. Not on purpose, by the way. It's just because I like to do the recap and not get bogged down, but it's easy enough on this big splash page. So it's Showdown is the actual title, which makes sense because the cover talks about, John Stewart taking on the Revenant Queen. Philip Kennedy Johnson, writer, Montos, artist, Adriano Lucas, colorist, Dave Sharp, letterer, cover artist, Montos and Matt Herms, variant cover artist, Razan and Mirko Kolak, Black History Month variant cover artist, Nicholas Draper Ivy, Jillian Grant, assistant editor, and Paul Kaminsky remains the editor. So we begin with, and I did like the art here, by the way, which is weird because I guess it's still not very liney face wise, not a lot of detail on the face, but I think because Ellie Rose looks so good, it works. So you have John's mother telling a story to Ellie Rose about basically a knight fighting a monster with a just wooden shield and a rusty sword and all that, spear, excuse me, and obviously, it's supposed to be not so subtly symbolic about what John Stewart is facing, because despite the odds, this knight is able to beat back the dragon and live to fight another day. We go from that little prologue to John Stewart, Shepherd, and the knockoff lanterns that didn't get killed at the end of last issue, squaring off against the Revenant Queen, the Radiant Dead, and they're trying to figure out a solution to this problem. They have some cool moments here with Varan and John making it clear how sick he is of Varan, which we all are sick of Varan, but it's pretty. Their banter is pretty interesting. A lot of good panels on dual splash pages here with constructs being created by the Radiant Dead and by Shepherd especially. John Stewart too, but Shepherd is always obviously he comes up with these these biological or biomech constructs, which are pretty cool. Varan, after he seemingly gets destroyed, but he can't die that easy by John, decides to tap into his Durlan roots to take on a new appearance. So he takes on the appearance of John's father and makes the comment about, hey, I wonder if your mother would basically remember this visage, which is definitely not the right thing to say to John Stewart, who goes ballistic and tells him, don't talk about my mother. At this stage of the game, we have, the surviving knockoff lanterns pretty much get wiped out. One of them tells his ring basically to go to tell the United Planets what happened here, which, of course, assuming they don't know or they're not involved in any of this or having. But I thought it was a nice touch that seemingly this one lantern, though he's not overly skilled, at least he acted like a regular lantern in this moment. Shepherd is kind of getting all cocky now, fighting with John Stewart, thinking, hey, of course we're going to win this because we always win this. It's happened before. Shepherd gets speared by the Revenant Queen. And what's the name of this? What's the name of this realm, the world between worlds? Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
I don't either. That's that. But basically, Shepard's dying. On the verge of dying and being converted, taken over by the Revenant Queen. So John takes Shepard into the world between worlds, that whatever the hell they actually call us in this book. And I do like this moment too. John talks about how basically what's going on with the Radiant Den is almost like they're kind of like corrupting what the Green Lanterns really are, because of the fact that they are light. Light is everything about them, their weapon and what they build with. And so he makes the comment, what if we became light ourselves? We pretty much would be a lantern made from that light, would pretty much be invincible. So at that moment, John and Shepard come back into the real world, the ramifications of this, and what actually Shepard entirely is going to be able to do and what he's become. We don't really get a full explanation here, but we know he's back and ready to go. And then we get the end of the issue confrontation between pretty much John and the Revenant Queen 101, in which unfortunately we get one of the least interesting reveals of all time, where the Revenant Queen kind of explains that basically her real tie to John is the fact that the power that she comes from was basically once inside his wife, who I assume she's referring to Merrin, and that Merrin was once a host to this power, and this power is Olgrin of the First World, which is tied into the Superman War World saga, which means jack shit to me and probably at least 70% of people who are reading this book. And she does point out that the Radiant Den are really not constructs; they are a window through which Olgrin's light and will may pass through. And now now with you as his vessel, he will reclaim his place as as the god of gods. Blah 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 blah. Right before we end, we cut back to Ellie Rose and John's mother, and they're continuing the story. And Ellie Rose kind of looks out the window and sees this like big, literally like we seen before, this big dark star in the sky. And her mother goes, "You think it's your brother finally coming home?" And Ellie Rose goes, "I don't think so, Mom. I think John's going to be a while yet." And that's the end of this issue.
Yeah, her last voice bubble there, very clearly color scheme wise, mimicking somebody of the Radiant Dead.
Yep.
So, let's see, where do we? First of all, art. I did like the art in a lot of spaces, but it did feel a little rushed. I think I want to say is the thing. There are a couple, double page spreads and things like that, or near full page spreads, but nearly every page has a lot of like line work in the background or no backgrounds at all, as opposed to any actual backgrounds. Like there's one where you see Earth, but we know that's got to be some sort of that's not a penciled image. That's got to be some sort of computer generated image. If you look at most every panel in this issue, for the most part, there is no backgrounds whatsoever. And that bothers me. That said, I still like the art that we did see, renderings of some of the Radiant Dead, John. Some of the constructs looked a little off to me. I don't know if that's coloring or inking, or if there is even inking on some of these constructs, if I'm being honest. Let's see, writer, artist, color, letterer. Just because an inker is not listed doesn't necessarily mean there wasn't any inking done on the part of the artist. So I won't entirely rule that out. But some of these constructs look like they weren't inked, and I don't know if that's part of the problem of why some of them look weird or not. I don't know. I'm not going to harp on that too long. Lots of sound effects work here being done. Fooshes and fooms and pooms.
Yes.
And, yeah, all kinds of different sound effects being done. What's that? Onomatopoeia? Is that what that is?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Yeah. So a lot of that happening. Interesting thought process in terms of resurrecting Shepard, in terms of becoming light and everything, and John tapping into that ability. That's cool. Tapping into the Durlin of it all. Okay, I'm sick of the Durlins anyways. But okay, cool. He is a Durlin. You might as well do something with that.
Yeah, that was a nice touch considering.
Yeah. I do think it was cool that this United Planets lantern cut off his own hand so that his ring could
Escape.
escape and tell the energy without being corrupted by the radiant dead.
Yeah, I mean, considering
Yeah.
considering the schlock lanterns we've dealt with so far, overall you have to be. I mean, I guess maybe it wasn't actually a surprise then that he was like the last one to make it. And he didn't die at the end of the last issue either. So maybe this one actually had a little bit of raw skill that it could have been harnessed if given enough time.
Katana?
Yeah, was that one Katanic or was that the one he was talking to? I keep forgetting.
It's Katanic, yeah. He says, get above them, there are too many Katanic, and then Katanic gets killed. Because Shepard's the one screaming his name.
You're right. You're right. Yep.
Using the backdrop of his mother and everything, that's interesting. Okay, and just I get, because it's probably going to be the thing we spent the most time on. I agree with you. Does this reveal mean anything to you or me specifically, Chad Bokelman or Mark Marble? No. Therefore, it was a letdown to us. That said, Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics run was extremely popular and well received. I know, for instance, Phil over at Podcast of O was actually a big fan and read a lot of that, and hadn't read Superman in a long time before Philip Kennedy Johnson's run, and picked it up when Philip started, and Phil is a big fan of Superman, but hadn't been reading for a while. So Philip Kennedy Johnson brought him back on to reading Superman regularly, and he really enjoyed what Philip Kennedy Johnson was able to do with Action Comics. And then I know that his run was very well received by a lot of people. I didn't read it. You didn't read it. Therefore, this means nothing to us for the most part. It means something to a lot of other people, just not us. And I have to wonder how many other people who are reading the Green Lantern War Journal title, what is the percentage who are reading it purely because they're following Philip Kennedy Johnson to his next DC work? And what is the percentage who are just reading it as Green Lantern fans?
Yeah, and it also comes down to when did he start doing this Radiant Dead stuff? Was that when he was writing which book? Did he first kind of go down that road? It was before he started doing the backup stories, right?
Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League.
Oh, that was the first time he did it. I thought it went beyond that. But you probably, I don't know. On some level, this seems very self-serving. I mean, because yeah, he could have had a master plan all along. It's like, I think I could tie this into Green Lantern if I ever get to write it, or that's what I want to do. But it seems like it's an idea that he liked, or he was something he was writing in a previous book, and it's like, well, it doesn't really fit, but I can like squeeze this, square peg into a round hole, and I don't see how this is going to, or how this could possibly land well with many people, when the whole point of the real interest in this, besides whatever the power set, which we kind of get a pseudo, not much of one honestly, but a pseudo explanation of what's going on here with the Radiant Dead's power. The main interest in this, beyond it being a John Stewart book, is the fact that they kept playing up that this is like personal between the Revenant Queen and John Stewart, and the ties between them is so personal. And it's like, the tie is, it's not 100% tangential, but it's like, it's so loose at this moment. I mean, maybe they'll expound upon it, and maybe it might resonate a tad more. But it's almost like you're reading a trilogy of books to find out that the big bad is a character that had like 10 pages in book 1, and now who doesn't show up again until like the final 50 pages of book 3. It's like I don't know. I don't think it helps this book. This book, I mean, apparently isn't really selling great to begin with. So I certainly don't see this as a plus pushing it in the right direction, because it seems like this is just almost by a pure definition of anticlimax here for what we got, and how many people it's going to, like you said, at this, I would guess it's not a huge percentage of people that are at best, you could say half the people I think that'd be reading this book would be more Philip Kennedy Johnson fans than Green Lantern fans or John Stewart fans. I would be stunned if it was any more. That I would kind of think that's like the highest ratio you could get, a 50-50 mix. So I don't know. it definitely made this book. This was the least enjoyable of all the books in this series so far. Even though the artwork was good and there were moments that were good, it's the reveal that was so bad. It just completely derailed my interest in the story to a large extent, at least as of now.
I will push back on one point you made, and that's just the idea that this is tangentially connected and he's forcing a connection between his two runs. We can't possibly know that without having read Action Comics. So there's no way to know that. Now, whether that means anything to anybody or whatever, the rest of what you said, yes, cool, all valid. I'm just saying we can't possibly know it's a good fit or an easy fit or a natural fit to what came before it without having read what came before it.
I mean, there's truth in that, but it's also related to. It really comes down to what his thought process, his master plan all along was. If he knew, given when he first started messing around with these concepts, that this is where he would like to take it, he just never knew necessarily if he would have the opportunity. So if he knew all along when he did this in action so this is what he wanted to do. So when he had the opportunity to do the John Stewart one shot, that he did that, and then it's like, okay, if I get to continue the story, then okay, at the very least, it was part of a plan that he had. So it wouldn't be as forced from his perspective. It would be long-term planning. But from a reader perspective, it's hard to move beyond how lackluster the reveal was and how it kind of just lands with a thud. And I think it probably landed with a thud for I'm being conservative to say with the majority of the Green Lantern fans reading the book. I think it's almost guaranteed that is a sizable majority that it's like, what? Huh? Really?
Yeah, I will say, like, am I tempted to go back and read or at least check out a couple of issues of Action Comics? Yes, just to see, a little bit of who this character is, because regardless of whether or not, like, it makes the reveal mean something more, in retrospect, it's clearly going to play a factor moving forward. So it doesn't hurt me to know either way. And if it does make me enjoy it more retroactively, then, okay, well, I guess I didn't waste any time. And if it doesn't, then at least I know more moving forward for the next few issues. So I don't see any harm in going back and reading some relevant Action Comics issues with relation to Olgren. I will say, in terms of the Revenant Queen, I came to know you when I once claimed your wife as a host with your unborn child inside her, a lantern herself on her world. So you said Marin and everything. But she's referring to when I came to know you as in the builder of her world, right? So his continuity, who was his wife, could have been Marin, could have also been Katma, I guess. But it also, it's another universe, so it could have been, Hawkgirl, or anybody Vixen. It could have been even anybody we've never seen romantically linked to John before on that world. It just really depends. It'd be interesting if it was Katma and it was a very similar situation to how our world's Katma died in terms of being killed by Carol Ferris, Star Sapphire. Which I won't harp on that too long, but it came up, so I have to mention it. It's such a shame that the Green Lantern Action Comics Weekly stuff was never collected, because in the first issue, Star Sapphire killed a major character, and it had a big impact on the relationship between John Stewart and Hal Jordan. How come that is never collected? It makes no sense.
Yeah,
but anyway.
that is true. And to be fair, I probably should have said Katma, even though my mind, because we're so drawn into Marin, because we're expecting a connection with the Dark Stars. That's probably why instinctually I said that. But logically, Katma would have made more sense. But you're right. It's another one of those X factors, because we don't know exactly how this plays out since the connection between John Stewart and the Revenant Queen is all over the place, and it's in multiple universes. That it really is 100% impossible to be sure exactly who they're talking about and when and where this all took place and everything. So
yeah, I will say, Montos, look, the first page with his mom and her daughter, and the last page, as well as the last two double splash pages mainly featuring the resurrection of Shepard and the reveal of Ulgrin, as well as the background of a Revenant Queen. Those are probably the best, and maybe the one before that, with the right before he resurrects Shepard and he starts becoming light. Great job, and then great job on a lot of the character focus throughout. It's just I keep quickly paging through every page of this issue, and man, other than the pages I mentioned, there are nearly no backgrounds, and it bothers me quite a bit, actually. The more I look at it, the more it bothers me. So
Yeah, it is an interesting choice. And yeah, I can certainly understand why that would bother you. I get it. And
they're
it's
really
yeah,
using this background like sunspot effect where it's like there's a bright center either off to the side or in the middle or whatever, and then it does the sun rays effect in a lot of the different backgrounds. And I why? Why? I don't understand. It's
no, I get
look,
it.
you're paging through it as quickly as I am, right? Do you see like it's nearly every other page they're using this one page where he's impaling this giant spider thing. It's nearly every panel has this little sunspot effect in the background, and then,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the next page, it's crazy.
I mean, clearly it's a stylistic choice, and again, some of the art, is a little hit and miss. On that same page you just talked about with the spider when Shepard's flying next to John Stewart the first time. I mean, that's a very awkward looking panel.
Mhm.
Looks like his armor is like 3 times too big for his body there. But I thought overall, because of the battle scenes, I thought the art was a little better in this issue compared to last, and even some of the lack of detail in like the faces that bothered me last issue, maybe just because of how well Ellie Rose is drawn, that even the lack of detail, especially like in the mother's face, that in most of those panels, I'm willing to let go. So,
Yeah.
but
As far as Olgren goes, look, we've had characters make the crossover from being the villain of one character or group of characters in the universe to being the other. The big one, of course, being Mongol. Mongol was a Superman villain for a while, and then I think arguably we would probably say he's just as much now, if not more, a Green Lantern villain at this point in time.
just like
Uh,
Cyborg Superman.
Yep, that's true. Granted, there was much more time between, the changeover, as opposed to a year or two. I can't. What is time anymore at this point? But it wasn't too long ago that Philip Kennedy Johnson ended his Action Comics weekly run. Or Action Comics run. So this making the jump over this quickly is a little new, but it wouldn't be the first time it made a villain made a crossover like this.
No, but don't forget those villains. To be fair, but when they came there was a fork in the road where they could have crossed over, because obviously Green Lantern 46 and in the Reign of the Superman crossover was that moment where both Cyborg Superman and Mongol were now on board with theoretically being Green Lantern villains because of what they were what they were responsible for. This on the surface, just pointing out, seems like whatever happened in Action Comics had absolutely nothing to do with John Stewart, and now all of a sudden now it's kind of like somehow it's becoming a Green Lantern problem.
I think otherwise that's it. If we go much longer, I'm probably going to end up harping on the art some more because I just keep paging back and forth and it's pissing me off more and more. I will say, speaking of the art, the other thing I noticed specifically, the panel you mentioned where he's flying side by side with Shepard, that's a good representation of it. Montos is showing John building his constructs piece by piece.
That is true.
And that's not the first time. If you do a couple more pages later, as Varen or whatever saying, I'll burn the flesh from your bones. He's constructing some more constructs, and then he gets it down to the last panel there. You turn the page, and then it's finally a big mech with hammer arms. So that's kind of cool. So there's definitely lots of focus in terms of detail, constructs being built, unbuilt, assembled, disassembled, uh, piecemeal, which keeps us in line with what was that Rebirth when we first talked about that? The difference how
Yeah,
the Earth
yeah.
lantern.
Yeah, about in general how all of the four corpsmen there approach
Mhm.
building constructs in completely different fashions. Yeah, that was Rebirth 6.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, yeah. Look, the reveal wasn't for us. Lessens its impact. I don't know that it makes me enjoy the series overall less. That's something that I'll have to determine when we get to the end of this actual story, because this issue doesn't end the story. So we have to see how the story resolves itself, how the drama plays out. Um, but it's the least exciting issue for me thus far. Doesn't mean it's necessarily killed the entirety of the story arc for me. So we will see.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a momentum change and not on the surface, not a positive one. That's why I will also be interested to see. And again, to be fair, we may not know even if it's going to have an impact on sales. We may not know with the sales for this issue. It might be issue 7 to see if it has any kind of noticeable difference to see if the book drops considerably, let's say from issue 6 to issue 7, which would then seemingly indicate that some it would be a reasonable conclusion to reach that some of what happened in 6 may have influenced the drop, because it may not be the only explanation. But like I said, this book is more like hovering around the 150 range, so it's much closer to the Alan Scott book than being in the top 100, which is not what you want to be. So I have a hard time, like I said, imagining that this is going to be a boon for the sales on this book, because you would think it's going to at least takes the wind out of the sails. You are correct, though. It doesn't mean that even though the reveal is pretty bad as far as reveals go, it lands pretty flat, that it doesn't mean that you still can't make it tell an interesting story with it. I'll
Mhm.
just be curious to see how that kind of pans out, and also to see if this is a downward spiral from a sales perspective. This begins one of those, but we won't know that for a while yet.
Yeah. One quick note: there's an ad in here for the Batman First Night. It's one of the Black Label series. It says a chilling Batman adventure set in the year 1939, as told by writer Dan Jurgens and artist Mike Perkins, which are some throwback names in terms of DC Comics writing and art at this point. And I haven't read a Batman book in a while, but I might pick up this first issue. Just the only reason I mentioned it because other than like Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman White Knight stuff, I haven't picked up a Batman book in a long time. But you throw me some throwback artists and writers, and you put it in a year, and it's part of the Black Label, I might actually read the first issue of this thing. So good on you, DC, for making me actually curious about a Batman book for once in a long time.
Throwing Dan Jorgens on a book for me always makes it more interesting. It tends to make it more interesting when he's writing and drawing the book too. But yeah, I likes me some Jorgens. Am I likely to pick this up? No, but you are correct. It is much more enticing than your standard Batman book combination of whoever they would throw on the book, and it's like, okay, that's nice, but I don't care.
Okay, what's next?
We quit now. That seems to be a good option a lot of days. Let's do some feedback, because Lord knows we not that we have a ginormous amount of it, but we have slacked off on even addressing any of it lately. So I guess that's probably the best bet.
All right, for sure. Where do we want to start?
You want to start off on a roll with Corwin?
I mean, we can.
Or we could leave him for the grand finale, but
I mean, it's funny. It'll give us something to laugh at the end.
All right, so so
Yeah.
we'll leave Corwin to the end. So let's do Monty. Let's just work backwards because especially since I kind of most of his are long anyway. So but this one covers so many different things. So I think we'll do the futuristic one instead, and we'll do so.
Oh, so we're working backwards.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Let's do that one because that way, if we can't get them all done, then at least we wiped off the. Especially since he kind of mentions he kind of mentions one of your favorite storylines in this. By luck, I thought that was kind of ironic in more ways than one, but we won't go into that tonight. So, all right, I'll read this one. So, what do you want to do? You want me to pause after every like couple of segments, or because obviously he touches upon a lot of stuff. So, you want me to do like maybe two or three at a time and
Yeah,
pause?
2 or 3 paragraphs or whatever. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Hello there. Hello there. Just a little email about the various features presented over the years on the LanternCast. I'm going by the sidebar thingy on LanternCast.com, so in alphabetical order, but skipping the ones I haven't mentioned already. Making the point of saying he's still only at episode 323, which is pretty good considering more than halfway through. So, annual movie previews and TV stuff. Yes, love those. Knowing how a film turned out and hearing what you guys got right and wrong has been a great and sometimes hilarious experience. I don't know how we should take that. Mark really seems to know his stuff. I watched all the Saw films myself and literally no one else who has. And Chad always has an important alternate perspective. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, so I appreciate finding out how a proper fan feels about the recent stuff from that galaxy. On the other hand, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan up to a point, so anything on that topic is always welcome, despite it having little or nothing to do with Green Lantern. I always like having the break, as I'm sure you do. My favorite show for a good years was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's great to hear Chad is also a fan. And let me just do one more paragraph and then we'll. April Fool episodes. They were always good fun, despite the sketches themselves being a hit or miss sometimes. True. Are these finished now? Oh, that's a shame. You owe us but CG Chris. I'm not sure what's Christ.
CG Crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, which we talked about. Trust me. There have been plenty. There have been. I have had a idea of Crisis on Infinite LanternCast for a while. I think the ultimate problem is figuring out coming up with a big bad that would make it worthwhile. But doing the other LanternCast would be fun. I already thought about that for a while. Seriously though, there has to be infinite potential in these, so I'd love to see them return. So since I started kind of ad-libbing on that one anyway. The problem with the April Fool episodes historically nowadays is that they do take time to plan and organize, depending on especially if it's not just going to be Chad and I, but even getting Jim and if Dan wants to do something and anybody else, if sometimes we, based on the nature of the skit and what we're revisiting, kind of needs other people. I think that's really been the main thing, especially since we've been pumping out so many episodes regularly that it makes it difficult to plan, and then it's putting and then pulling everything together. I think, and from my perspective, would we like to do one at some point? Yes, it's just I think that's what usually happens, and then before you know it, boom, it's like already halfway through March and we haven't really done anything, and it's time. Well, not this year.
April Fool's episodes are a little bit more work for that. I don't think people realize because you touched on this a little bit, but just from my own perspective, you have to record the segments, but a lot of the segments involve guest people. So we're locked into a specific kind of schedule with those individuals and making sure that they're going to be available and that we're all there and nobody gets sick in between the time we talk about when we're going to do it versus when we're actually doing it and so on and so forth. And because nobody's schedules are ever the same, if you're doing multiple segments, then you're basically recording multiple times in a week or a given week. So there's a little bit of a burnout that happens with that because there's so much recording, even if they're just short little skits. And, sometimes you get these people on the mic and you're like, oh man, this is funnier than I thought. So you want it to go longer, but then you add up all the clips and it ends up being like a 2-hour episode. And you're like, damn, that's not what I wanted either. So yeah. And there are also times where we'll have an idea and we'll do 2 or 3 segments and then we do get burned out, but we let that affect us. And we're just like, you know what? Maybe we just don't do it this year. So, they're fun. And I know Jim wants us to bring them back too and stuff like that. It's just, they're more work than you think they are. And April 1st comes up a lot faster than you think it does. There have literally been times when we're like, oh yeah, it's almost April. Oh well.
Yeah, and I think that that's it. And then like not to belabor the point, but you look at this year with there currently being two real Green Lantern books and whatever the Alan Scott book is, which ironically doesn't even come out this month, right? We figured out it's not even going to be a February release. Uh, but up until this point, there's been three books coming out every month for the last 4 or 5 months, and then everything else we want to do. That yeah, it just becomes a challenge. So can you count on one this year? No. Do we think you'll probably get one again from us? Yes, but it's something we just pretty much have to plan ahead, at least like a month, at least a couple of months ahead of time to organize the skits and then line people up, because then you can always record a bunch of stuff ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure.
So the annual movie stuff, yeah, I mean, we always like doing it. I think in general, actually, it's one of the things I've been thinking about is that this year we're probably not going to have that many movie review episodes. It's going to be I don't know how many we're going to have, but here we are knocking on March. We haven't had one. I assume we'll probably do a Godzilla and Kong one. That's probably the most likely first one we're going to get, and that then means we won't be doing it till April, recording in April. So yeah, but we like doing them, and I like to think I know my stuff about certain things. Saw happens to be one of them, useless as it is, just like Chad knows his Agents of Shield.
Yeah, I've been watching a YouTuber. I think he just goes by Omni Media, but it's like a OMN1 Media is his YouTube handle. He puts out a lot of React content. Like currently, he's I think watching the new Avatar live action Last Airbender thing. But he's watching a whole bunch of stuff. I watched all of his Monarch reactions after I watched the episodes, and he's also watching Agents of Shield for the first time, and he's currently, I'm pretty sure he's done with season 1 and he's on to season 2. And it's just reminding me of all that stuff. And I did an Agents of Shield rewatch not too long ago, so I'm just kind of vicariously, he releases these like every Wednesday or something, so I'm just watching him catch up because he's an MCU fan but never watched Agents, so he's seeing a lot of cool stuff that's going on, and it's nice seeing it through the new eyes. But I think the thing I don't like about the annual movie episodes, and this is very surface level, is Mark is a movie guy. So that means most everything on my list, even if it's not something Mark is particularly interested in, like on his own, as a fandom or whatever, Mark is probably going to go see anyways because Mark goes to the theaters. Or he also pays attention to box office and announcements and stuff. So no matter what I really say on those episodes, Mark has an opinion. Whereas if Mark talks about something, I'm just the general, like I only watch the things I like. So like if he starts talking about Saw, unfortunately, my response because there's a little bit of a call and response, right? We're not going to just have Mark list his number 5 or whatever, talk about it, and then we go into my number 5 and I talk about it, and we don't talk about each other's thing. But unfortunately, there has to be times where I'm like, as you guys know, I'm not a big horror fan. It feels like every year I'm doing that. So I feel like I'm not pulling my weight on some of those numbers.
Nah, it's just the way it is. I mean, there are certain topics that you have more knowledge and interest into, and that I. So it's kind of in the same boat. I mean, I think it's natural to feel that way. You just kind of like wade your way through kind of the murky waters there.
For sure. I think we might do, like, it depends on if you like it, but I think we might do a Monarch episode too.
That is true. I do have to watch them, but I am not unopposed to that, because again, we talked about that could be a Corwin you and I episode. So, all right. So let's see. I'm going to pump through like 4 of these now, so then we can wrap it up a little faster going through this. So commentary tracks. I'm usually at work, so I don't get the chance to run these properly. Maybe I'll go back at some point, but it's a great idea as long as you don't stray too far from the Green Lantern DC stuff. Contest sounds like fun. I look forward to getting into these in the future. I don't really care about prizes. Can I get them overseas anyway? I forget. I just want to contribute something really. Dark Stars. I enjoyed this as it was. It's a shame it fizzled out so quick. I'd love if someone picked this up again, because I enjoyed what I've read of Farron, Carlos and company back in the day. and was even more interested in the John Donna era as I only read that one Z Shram tie-in from that time. Brings to mind the possibility of doing one for the Guy Gardner's 90s series. And let's do the Elseworlds. Elseworlds, yep, good stuff. It's a shame that there isn't more material but Green Lantern in it, but I'd be fine with any old Elseworld stuff, as I've always loved seeing all the alternate versions and how purely different they can be sometimes. When they get the balance between the same and the different right, some of the most interesting reading experiences are created. A personal favorite that seems somewhat unsung is how do you pronounce that name?
Mensch.
Mensch.
Doug Mensch.
Is it? I thought, but wasn't sure. Mensch, Jones, Beatty's Batman, Dark Joker, The Wild. It's dark as you know what. All right, so in order here, the commentary tracks are fun, obviously, thanks to the little nuance that Zoom has added. That would be a little more complicated to do now. But not impossible, but it is more complicated, especially because it's not like you just can't pause the actual movie or whatever you're doing it on and pick up exactly where you left off, so no one needs to know how many segments it took. I don't necessarily personally think it has to be all Green Lantern DC stuff, just like everything else, just like the way Elseworld stuff doesn't have to be all Green Lantern stuff. I think depending on what the commentary is, I think it could be interesting. If there's insights worth sharing, I think it could be interesting, even if it's not necessarily directly related to DC or Green Lantern.
Yeah, for sure.
Contest, we were funny because we were much like two of these things that have come up in conversation lately. We kind of like doing contests. It seems sometimes we like doing them more than people like participating. So that kind of gets in the way. It kind of gets in the way a little bit, but there is a possibility of a contest coming soon, since we certainly have a good prize.
We have a couple of them. Actually had one of our fellow Green Lantern podcasters reach out to us, and he gave me, I think, 6 issues from the start of why am I blanking on the current writer's name?
Jeremy?
Yes. Thank you. The first several issues of Jeremy's run in single issue form. And also, I actually recently picked up an extra Red Lantern Hal Jordan Funko figure, which is out now, just FYI. See if you can find them at your local Target. So at least those 2 things are going to be in an upcoming prize. So, but as for the overseas thing, I've never actually checked into it. I just assume it's too expensive. And also, I know it varies by country too. So it would be very difficult to check, all of the different places you could possibly send something and then make a full list of where we can and where we can't and what's eligible and what's not. So it's easier just to say the contiguous United States or something like that.
And maybe Canada.
And Canada. Yeah, maybe Canada. Yeah.
Dark Stars, I don't have much experience, honestly, with the Dark Stars too, other than a bunch of different tie-in issues for different arcs myself. So you may have more strong feelings towards Dark Stars than I do, but
yeah, that was fun. We had somebody writing some blog posts that ended up not being able to continue it, but that was cool. Now that everybody's locked in, should we say it or no?
Feel free.
All right, guys. Mark's idea continues with its annual. Its second annual GL June is coming this year. GL June is an event where all the Lantern podcasters who want to be involved join up and cover one story arc that crosses over. And there you go, Monty. You mentioned it. We will actually be covering the Siege of Zishram this year for GL June. Between us and Podcast of Oa, Mosaic Comics, Emerald Echo, and the Green Lanterns podcast. So that's GL June. So we'll be talking some Dark Stars soon enough.
Yeah, surprisingly easy to come up with a topic that we thought it would be more challenging in a way, but luckily for this year, it was much like last year. It was pretty smooth coming up with at least something that people, at least on the surface, gave a thumbs up to. Whether so that's cool. And to be fair, that obviously even in the regular John Stewart book, there are some Dark Star ties at this stage of the game, and they're going to be more. Elseworlds, yeah, from a spin-off perspective, obviously I've not really been involved in that unless we've done some certain certain one-shots here or there, like stuff that they put out. What the hell were the ones we did with the Flash and God, drawing a blank. So the alternate ones, like on the Lois was, or the Eradicator or whatever it was, or But
I don't know what
they,
you're talking about.
well, they had all those one shots. That remember we started doing them, and then we had to do them all, and I just wanted to be more selective on what we did.
Oh, the Dark Multiverse?
Yes, the Dark
Yeah.
Multiverse ones.
Yeah.
So things like that. Unless we do those, yeah, that was you and Jim, so for the most part. But yeah, I agree. I think those are always fun to do.
Yeah, Jim and I had a plan to do the Green Lantern novel at one point, the Heroes Quest novel written by Denny O'Neil. That's all about Kyle because it's essentially an Elseworlds. But it never happened. Jim's got kids and a wife and new house, relatively new house, and he's got a lot of stuff on his plate. So I don't like bothering him, and it's also difficult to tell someone, hey, read a book. It's one thing to be like, hey, read an issue. It's another to be like, hey, read a whole novel, and be ready for an episode. So there's that.
Yeah,
But
and
maybe one day we'll come back. Plus, they could also theoretically fall under the famous, not famous first, the Emerald Influence banner as well, too, if we ever wanted to do something.
yeah, that is true. Actually, that's a good point. That is another way of branching out and doing that. And yes, I mean, as we know, and this isn't to put pressure on him at all. The reality is, yeah, Jim's got a lot on his plate, which, as we know, which is, which factors in, not the only factor, but it's also why, he and I haven't sat down to record either a toy podcast or what we really need to do is pre-birth. Uh, Speaking of which, ever so briefly, did you look at that? Did you look at that? Hal Jordan Spectre variant of the McFarlane?
I did see it. Yeah.
Not perfect, but damn good. Let's just hope, since most people hated Hal as the Spectre, that thing's not going to go for outrageous prices when they start showing up on eBay. Cause
I was tempted by the regular Spectre, but the fact that the Build-A-Figure piece that it comes with is just basically a massive cape that takes up half the box made me be like, you know what? No. If I'm displaying this, if I'm displaying this in box, I don't care.
Oh, you're talking about the figure itself.
Yeah, the figure itself has a cape. That's fine. But there's a Build-A-Figure, anti-monitor or monitor?
Yeah, but I think his head comes with it too.
Yes, but there's also his cape comes with the Spectre, which takes up half the box, and I'm looking at the back of a cape for another figure when all I want to see is the Spectre.
I reckon I could see that, but the Hal Jordan variant is pretty damn cool. I would love to get that. That is an interesting choice, especially considering it's a crisis wave. I don't know if that was the best way to go, but again, it's like, hey, it's a Spectre. What can we do? All right, so let's roll through the rest of these. Famous First. I just listened to the first Famous First. Not sure where you're planning to go with these, but it's cool to hear more personal experiences from you guys. Hearing about some randomy Marvel comics that probably wouldn't get any exposure otherwise serves to underline how unique an experience collecting is. Green Lantern, Green Arrow. This, along with Dan's coverage of Mosaic, is for me the highlight of the lot. Up yours, buddy. No, I'm kidding. Chad really seems to come into his own when he hunkers down for one of these, putting in a lot of work for the right research, sign of the times, etc. I was sorry to hear it's on pause at the moment, but understand why. Of particular delight was reading of the letters pages. I love and miss these so much that I think a feature dedicated to the opinions of the time and creator responses would be awesome. It's actually not a bad idea. A letters page got me into reading DC Comics, so they have a very special place in my heart. Greatest toy podcast. Not my barrel of monkeys, to be honest, but I get that it's a big part of fandom. I would deny it to no one, but of all things, I think I tune out more with these than any other part of it all. All right, Monty, you're about to be blacklisted. Green Lantern quarterly, blah, 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 blah. This was a fave back in the early days of collecting, but I'm still missing a couple. I love the sheer variety in this comic. Yup, even the Nort sections. It really showed the scope of potential for the whole thing. Maybe a potential follow-up could be a focus on Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, backups from the 70s and the 80s. Seems I'm out of time again, so I'll chat about the rest next time. Keep those lights shiny. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Thanks for the love. I appreciate that. It doesn't get a lot of attention. First of all, that's wholly my fault. At least 90% my fault because of how infrequent it's out there. So 100%, let's own that. But also, even when it does release, I don't get a lot of feedback from it. So I really do appreciate when somebody says something about it. So I do appreciate that. Why it's on hold? Yes, the very next issue that is to be covered for that, and I've mentioned this on the show before, but I don't think it's been a while, So the very next issue to be covered in order would be the first appearance of Jon Stewart. And in talking about that issue, because I highlight signs of the times and the historic importance of each issue, also in how it's important to us now and the comic industry as a whole, as well as the social issues and stuff that's tackled. Obviously, one of the social issues that's tackled in the first appearance of Jon Stewart is racism. And for me, as a white man with no experience whatsoever, to try and highlight the importance of a black character, I don't feel comfortable with that without having somebody who has that experience on the show with me. So whether that's Corwin or Daryl or somebody who we had on the show before that would be comfortable with talking with me and familiar with the character and the history, or if it's somebody new. I don't know who that is, but it does feel a little weird for a white man by himself to harp on the importance of a black character by himself. So whether that's a founded worry or not, it doesn't really factor for me because it's my personal comfort with it. I don't feel comfortable doing that by myself.
No, I certainly remember you talking about that. So, I can understand it. I can understand being sensitive to it to a large extent. So that makes.
Yeah, and it's not just like a random, hey, yeah, we added yet another black character to the lineup. This is one of the most important black characters in comics because they've talked about it before in various documentaries and stuff. He's one of the first black superheroes that wasn't named Black something, right? Like Black Green Lantern, or then you get things like Black Condor. Like they all had black in front of their names. This was just Green Lantern, still Green Lantern. Jon Stewart, sure, took his mask off, sure, but it was still just Green Lantern. So there's an added level of importance to Jon Stewart that I think adds to this whole thing because and that's not including my bias as a Green Lantern fan. That's just the honest truth of it, just being a comics fan in general. There is an importance to Jon Stewart that elevates it a little bit.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But Daryl actually would be an interesting idea for that. Famous first, yeah, I think I can speak for both of us here. We like the concept is good, being able to take something that appeals to us as on a base level as a fan for whatever it was, our first introduction to something, and then sharing it and comparing it and discussing it, even especially since usually the other person can just enter into it just by judging it as reading material, not having that same kind of emotional or a nostalgic connection to it. So
those are always very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, as far as not doing them regularly, again, it's just a matter of coming up with a theme or coming up with issues and being able to access what we need to do it. But yeah, I am sure there'll be at least one of those this year. I think pretty much.
Yeah.
Greatest Toy Podcast. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it doesn't appeal to everybody. And again, what topics we're going to do and how we go into it. I know Lance even gave a good idea about maybe doing something more related to our things that Jim and I personally are more drawn to from a hobby perspective, not always just in a pure, hey, we got this and this is available and it's cool. That almost like delving into something that maybe people don't know about us individually that from a hobby perspective that we do that's related in the field of collecting or toys. So, but I'd like to think we'll do one this year. I feel more confident that we'll do a pre-birth, if for no other reason, because I'll keep the sword in his back to do one of those, and we are falling behind. But it's not for everybody, and I think we enjoyed doing the quarterlies too. It was fun. So maybe some variation on that concept could continue down the road, but it fit obviously naturally since that was its own book and it ran for only a certain period of time leading up to Emerald Twilight. So it was pretty good.
The Tales of the Green Lantern Corps backup. Don't forget also there were the Tales of the Green Lantern Corps annuals. There were 3 of those. That's where we got the first Blackest Night stuff.
That's true.
Back in the day. And plus the Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, the actual backups, like that's where we first got Mogo Doesn't Socialize and stuff like that. So We could definitely. There's some definite like highlights to the Green Lantern mythos that we've never actually covered in those backups. But yeah, that'd be fun. All right. We have another email from Monty. We're working in reverse order, so forgive us, guys, if he's talking about stuff he already talks about later on or references something he talked about before. But he says, "Hello, LanternCast, and a very happy New Year to you. Where I'm at, I just listened to episode 297, which was the Daryl Banks and Ron Mars co-interview, which was amazing. Great questions, guys. Thank you. Really did enjoy that episode." I wish I had been around to contribute to 300, but with that in mind, I'll keep a close eye for episode 600 and see if I can do something for that. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the damage Johns did to what I thought was one of the most interesting things about the GL concept. They once were a loose collection of individuals who had only honesty and fearlessness to connect them. That meant that they could come from any walk of life, any potential philosophy, vocation, or background. Johns turned them all into basically the same sort of military types, thereby taking away a lot of the potential for stories. John Stewart is the perfect example, as his character became a shadow of the deep thinker we saw in Mosaic. Now, the differences are mostly aesthetic: human soldier, volcano head soldier, microscopic soldier, etc. In the days of truly inventive types of beings who brought new perspectives, Salak was from a planet of pessimists, for instance, to the table seemed further away than ever, with the UFP having co-opted the core. My favorite stories are the Tales of. My collection of GL is very 80s heavy because of this. Basically, anything could go in those. I know you guys love these as well, so I won't go on about their merits. It doesn't surprise me that we haven't seen any new types of these because they just wouldn't be as interesting. Now, I loved Johns' run for the most part. Things started getting shaky for me when I realized the War of Light wouldn't be realized as promised, and then I burnt myself out by getting all the Blackest Night tie-ins. And the militarizing of the core was necessary for the stories he wanted to tell. That's fine. But then Venditti carried the concept on as if that was the way it was meant to be, and we've all been stuck in that mode ever since. In times past, it was very rare for GLs to even meet, let alone converge into an army-sized force, and when they did it, it was a big deal, like the 80s Tales of the Core 3-part mini or the first big main battery destruction at the end of Volume 2. I can understand the editor's mentality, keep going with what works, but they seem to forget that Johns varied his tales between smaller character beats and spacey epics. My point is that, as it stands, I crave a return to the more imaginative potential that the GL represents, and think maybe they can build a new best-selling run off of a back to basics approach. Despite the worsening state of the core, I do think having Earth-based, Hal John-based solo stories is a step in the right direction. Another thing I miss is regular human supporting casts like Tom Kalmaku and a depowered Carol. But I suggest, thanks, Mark, or should that be Mark's?
Digest.
Digest.
Yes.
Yeah.
The joke I like to use. Yes.
This was supposed to be about Johns. I stopped reading after Brightest Day, New Guardian story, another War of Light level disappointment that the entities didn't retain their human hosts, and only went back to finish the run later on. And to be honest, the rest was pretty samey. Maybe Blackest Night was meant to finish Johns' run originally. Anyway, thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing your responses maybe when I catch up in like a year and a half. Monty.
Well, he's the clip that he's going on. It's not going to take him a year and a half to finish. I don't think. Let's touch upon a few. I think we've talked about this in relation to the state of the Green Lantern Union and things like that. It's fair to say that yes, the Johns run probably saw the Green Lantern Corps becoming an army again, as opposed to being a police force. But it's not like this hasn't been an ongoing back and forth kind of in Green Lantern history at times, and it's more of a modern probably tug of war. But it's not all, let's say, Johns' quote unquote fault to make it that this is an army, because it's a philosophical difference about what is the Green Lantern Corps. Are they just police? Or are they just an army? And we've seen it going back and forth, because Morrison's run clearly was focused on making them a police force more than anything else. So, and you can make a case now they're certainly not, whatever the hell they're operating as, they're not operating as an army under United Planets. So I don't, I think, so I don't think that's necessarily, it's true that he made them that, or that was his focus for the stories he wanted to tell, yes. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to blame that militarizing of the Green Lantern Corps just on Jeff Johns.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I will say, I think it was during the State of the GL Union, we were talking about the differences in portraying like a police force versus XYZ. The more I think about it, the more, and I don't remember who pitched the idea, but the idea of a knight is I think better, because these guys are supposed to be superheroes. That's what they started as. They're supposed to be superheroes. And, Monty's right. It was rare that we would see the entire Corps or even just a group of Corps members show up for something. It was a big deal when a group showed up. It was an even bigger deal when the entire Corps was in on something. And I just think of, the knights, and I'm not big on Arthurian lore, so I'm not quite sure if this is the case, but the Knights of the Round Table weren't always at Arthur's side, right? Meeting around the table. They were off in the country doing their own thing, their own heroic acts and stuff like that.
I believe that is accurate.
Yeah, so sort of the same thing, but on a, much bigger level. You come to the round table every now and then when a threat deems so, but otherwise you're a hero. You're a knight in your own right, protecting your land, your section, your sector, and doing your thing. And I just think that, I do like, yes, it had a weird connection in it, and we didn't really necessarily like it. But remember when we were reviewing the Crime Syndicate book, they called it Emerald Knight. It wasn't Green Lantern. That was the name of it in that universe. And I did kind of like the concept of them being knights. I think that's pretty cool, especially when you think like the Knight's Code and stuff like that, and comparing that with a Green Lantern oath and things like that. I think that would be, a return to a more superhero-y knight individualistic basis. There's definitely something there. Blaming it all on Johns, I don't know. He definitely popularized it because, hello, I'm here. I started reading with the Rage of the Red Lantern's Final Crisis one-shot special. So clearly I bit hard into whatever they were selling around Blackest Night, and I love the emotional spectrum and things like that. But I can see a lot of what Monty is saying, having been a fan who also picked up all the new stuff and then got so into it that he went and got the old stuff too. So I know what you're talking about, and I see it, but maybe because I didn't grow up with it, I'm not as attached to it as you are.
I think that could be a very fair approach to analyzing the difference. It's kind of like the difference between how people reacted to Emerald Twilight if you had grown up reading Green Lantern and been a big Hal Jordan guy all along, and then they do what they did to Hal and Emerald Twilight, versus if you were someone more like me who was not really into Green Lantern at the time and kind of became a Hal Jordan guy retroactively. That while you can certainly understand why people were losing their that the reality is that when you first read the issue or flipped through the issue, it's like, well, you don't get the full impact of what's going on because you don't kind of see them taking your hero and running him into the ditch the same way. So I think that could be a very good and objective way of looking at the difference in opinions. I think just like we talked about the difference between the Corps, between the police force and the Army, there's always a debate about Earthbound stories and spacebound stories. And I think ultimately, right now, anyway, I don't know if you could really sustain a Green Lantern book for long. I don't know if you could right now if you just had somebody Earthbound for a long, long, long period of time. We never get to see a long period of time. It's usually less than 12 issues these days. But I don't know if you could kind of do a book maybe like we did with Kyle for the most part today, not with John or Hal. I think there would be too much expectation.
I think I'm going to disagree with you on that a little bit because, like, look, I've mentioned it a bunch of times before, but like history proves with the publication of Green Lantern that they will do Earthbound stories for a long time. Then the sales dip, and then they decide to kick it out to space. It's like a bell curve. It's every single time, and it just repeats itself.
Out to space, sales dip for a while when it's out in space too long. Oh, we got to shake things up. What are we going to do? We're going to bring him back down to Earth. Okay, sales dip. Now we got to throw him out to space again and rinse, lather, repeat. It's just, it's the same thing. And I think historically you're right in terms of you can't do it for a long time, but I think it can be done and still maintain sales if it's done right. Like maybe pepper in a couple of space stories, because he is the Lantern of 2814. Send him out to some of the other planets to deal with, just like it was in the Silver Age. It's like, hey, these people are being threatened by these yellow pterodactyls. Go deal with this. These cavemen who are having their evolution cycle disrupted by these predators. Like that kind of stuff was always fun. It was kind of peppered in to kind of keep things interesting. I think you can do a significantly long Earth-based run, especially if we get away from the police force thing and get back to superheroics / night / whatever, because I mean, founding member of the Justice League, founding member of the JSA for Alan, and so on and so forth. These guys are so entrenched in what happens on Earth. I don't understand why we can't keep them there and tell interesting stories. And the only reason I can think of is we just need the right creative team to do it. And thus far, Jeremy Adams seems to be doing a pretty damn good job. Now, it looks like we're about to kick out into space pretty soon. But I would not be surprised if after this UP thing is done, that we come right back down to Earth.
Chad, you're ignorant? No. That was so overdue. I just wanted to work it in a little bit. I think, in a way, it may be the biggest, ironically, this could be the biggest thing supporting Monty's point about what John's done to the Green Lantern legacy, is that I think in the post John's era, it is hard to keep the interest of people, of readers, for long periods of time, or in long as in quotes, because again, we really haven't had it. I mean, the stuff with Jeremy Adams is arguably the longest we've had it for a while, because even when Venditti put Hal back on Earth, that barely lasted. Now, that wasn't maybe all his doing, because that was about to be the shakeup in what DC Rebirth and all this stuff. So that, who knows, if that might have lasted longer if potentially if things had gone differently. Even though I think Hal was actually in space when that kind of ended anyway, so maybe not. That might be the legacy, is that it's harder. I think it's hard. I think it'd be harder to pull off, especially if you only had one Green Lantern book. If you didn't have one, if you had two. So in a way, that's kind of the issue right now, because right now you have two real Green Lantern books, and both of them are currently on Earth. Now that's going to change, which is, kind of like, it's interesting, and probably not coincidental that they both are on Earth at the same time, and soon they're going to be both be in space at the same time. But I think if there was only one book, I still think it would be hard to generate a lot of interest. I mean, it may have nothing to do with Hal being on Earth, but like when I shared with you those sales numbers, which eventually we'll talk about related to Alan Scott, the Jeremy Adams book has been slowly slipping too. That it's like hovering around the top 50 right now, and trending in the wrong direction as to stay in it. So that's not exact. So maybe timing wise, even though that probably was, obviously was planned ahead at this point, where getting Hal off of Earth was always the plan, but it's probably going to come at a good time, because and again, that may not be the only reason that's happening. Maybe some of the things we've talked about with the book being kind of slow and getting to where it needs to go at this point. But I do think, based on the Johns run, probably has made it difficult to do that there was one solo Green Lantern book to kind of take the Kyle approach and have a huge percentage of the book take place on Earth, and then maybe have maybe once or twice a year have an arc when it's in space for a few issues, but the majority is Earthbound. Can it be done? Sure, it can be done. I think it's a little. I think because the bar has been raised, and that's, again, I think that's probably the biggest supporting piece of evidence, probably to what Monty was saying about the Johns run.
I think DC's also shooting themselves in the foot. Look, I get it. They're a big corporation. They're trying to keep IP running. They also want to sell more books. And because they want to do that, they take some of their best-selling stuff. They throw it into a
crossover to get more people on more titles. Stop with the crossovers. Stop with the events. At least, please scale the fuck back on them, because why is it that you can't tell an interesting story by itself in your title without doing a crossover every year and a half, 2 years? Why can't you do that? Why is it that I can read 20 plus issues of Something is Killing the Children, or What's the Furthest Place from here, or Homesick Pilots, or whatever, and still be interested in issue to issue to issue to issue? And when they start a new arc with a new character or a new storyline or whatever, I get just as excited, and I still just read the one title. Why is it you can't keep the focus on the creative team and what they want to do and let them take the wheels and run with it without throwing in a fucking crossover every now and then? Dial back, let the creators do what they're going to do. And if the creators themselves, without outside sales encouragement or editorial encouragement, decide to get together and do their own little thing within their own titles, like Jeremy Adams and Philip Kennedy Johnson talking to each other, going, hey, we're both doing this thing. Guess what? The United Planets are both kind of involved. Let's have a little powwow and see what we can do, so we're kind of on the same page. And oh, hey, as a result of this discussion, did we have like a little way to kind of tie these things in together just really briefly? Yeah, sure. Actually, you know what? That's a really cool idea. Let's do that, without throwing in things like night terrors and all the other bullshit we keep getting. I think DC keeps shooting themselves in the foot with our ability to stick and stay with a theme and a story for long enough, because they keep throwing curveballs at the creative teams and not letting them do their thing for any significant amount of time.
Yeah, I think there's truth in that. DC, I mean, let's be honest. DC in general is shooting themselves in the foot a lot, especially not just DC. Marvel probably, I'm sure Marvel does this too. I just pay less attention to it. The fact that giving us books and giving us stories that people really don't want and they know aren't going to sell, but they don't care because that's not the reason why they're creating them. It should be, because that's the industry that you're in, and you're supposed to be telling good stories. Once in a while, yeah, telling a story that it's so important you have to tell it, even if you think it's going to not go over big, or you think, well, it might be appreciated over time, but we get too much of, well, we can, the old adage, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And we get a lot of that. And I think that doesn't help either, because it's not just comics. I mean, we see the same thing in movies and streaming services. It's like, hey, nobody asked for this, so we'll give it to you, and then nobody wants it and nobody supports it. And it's like, well, nobody wanted it, and you should have realized. I mean, if you realize, or you should have realized, nobody wanted it. So don't be surprised when it doesn't work, and just say, well, we wanted to do it for us. Be honest about it at least. Own the fact that you didn't do it thinking it was gonna, but don't point the fingers at the audience. It's a combination of a bunch of things these days. So, but I do think every year it having to be a big DC event. And let's be honest, there's been, as we talked about, even when we did Dark Crisis, the modern day non-classic Dark Crisis, that you probably have to go back to friggin' Infinite Crisis for the last time they did a Crisis event that was actually good in DC. Almost everything else sucked on some, or sucked or was unimportant, and was eventually and meant nothing, came out, felt empty. And almost everything, whether it's Final Crisis, whether it's just Convergence. So I agree. I think there's a lot of lost direction, aimlessness going on when it comes to, I think, editorial in general.
And he mentions the varied types of lanterns that we used to get. I want to touch back on that real quick, because we talked about that in the freaking in the GL State of the GL Union episode. And I'm pointing back to that because if any of you pay attention to us on Twitter, Mark, I know you don't, this is the thing. This is cropped up recently, because guess what? I think it's IDW. Guess what IDW is doing?
What?
They're doing a Turtles series, black, white, and green.
Oh, okay.
They should, DC. Oh my God. We've been on the air for 15 years. Please, God, tell me someone at DC, or someone who knows somebody at DC, is listening to this show. Green Lantern, black, white, and green. The only thing that ever connects one of these types of stories that they put out, whether it's Marvel doing, because I've never read a Moon Knight title. I was like, oh, let me try some Moon Knight. So I got the Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood. I think it was Black, White, and Blood, or maybe just Black, White, and Red. I forget what they actually called it. Either way, concept is black, white, and red coloring. That's the only thing that unites it. All right, it's an anthology type book. You get little snippets of different stories, or you get full short stories, depending on if you want a continuation from issue A to issue B. And it's a bunch of different artists, a bunch of different writers doing their own thing, oftentimes trying out creators that don't necessarily get their own title, but maybe you think are talented enough to do a story, see how it goes, whatever. So it's a creator showcase, it's a talent showcase, and guess what? Since the coloring is the only scheme, you don't have to keep a house style art, and surprise, surprise, you don't have to keep a house style superhero story. It can be romance, it can be war, it can be mystery, it can be horror, it can be grisly, it can be anything you want it to be. You can tell any story with any art. And guess what? It being Green Lantern, you can use any Green Lantern, and I'm not just talking about the human ones. You could focus on a horror story involving Rotlop Fan if you wanted. Holy shit. You have what? It's 7,200 lanterns, give or take. It's supposed to be 2 lanterns per sector, right? So let's just say 7,200 lanterns. 7,200 fucking Green Lanterns out there you can tell a story with, any story with, not just one genre, and you could be doing an anthology series endlessly with that. Holy God, are you leaving money on the table? And I bring this up and talk about Twitter because on February 21st, when they announced the black, white, and green thing, Ron Mars retweeted it and said, years ago, I pitched a Green Lantern Black, White, and Green mini to DC, and my editor was like, absolutely not. There's no way I'm going to an editorial meeting and saying that out loud. What the fuck are you doing, DC? Holy shit. I'm sorry. We have talked for so long about there needs to be a Green Lantern anthology series, or just a Lantern anthology if we want to talk about all the other emotional spectrum stuff. And I know I'm like Chad Rant territory right now, but holy shit, the black, white, and whatever concept that's been going on in comics for the past 5, maybe 10 years, what is time at this point, has been so successful in telling some really good stories and introducing people to characters and creators they would not have otherwise been attracted to. It's not like every story in every issue of a black, white, and whatever series is a banger. But a proportionate, and I think worth it to the money you're spending on the issue, amount of them are. And the fact, it's like we finally found a focus for the idea that we've had it for years about doing a GL anthology series by further narrowing it to this black, white, and green concept. And I don't know if I'm just being a fanboy or whatever, but it's so obvious to me that they're leaving money on the table by not doing this that it drives me insane.
No, I get it. I get it. It's sometimes you have to think outside the box, even if arguably thinking outside the box is a box that's already been thought outside of before. You just have to say, hey, that was a good idea. It seems to fit this property really well. Why don't we do this instead of, yeah. It's really hard to figure out, especially DC at this moment, what the hell they're doing, because I mean everything from Infinite Frontier going forward has been a cluster. I mean, they've completely unfocused. Everything that was supposed to matter hasn't. I mean, Infinite Frontier was it's like a pimple on your derriere that just came and went, and it's like, wow, it's crazy. So it's a microcosm for, I think, everything that's going on right now.
All right, Monty, thanks so much for those emails. You inspired a lot more talk than we were initially planning on. So we'll either save some stuff for later or just, we'll just say thank you here and now for those emails. Because I don't want to promise that we'll get back to something and we end up not doing that. So if we don't end up getting to those other emails that we were planning on, thank you. Regardless, we appreciate all the feedback you've been sending us.
But don't assume. But don't take that as Chad basically being polite to say we're definitely not. That because we've got the odds are, and so even if we have to do it in an abridged fashion, the odds are we will at least mention some of the points and talk about. Yeah, so we just want you to think we're blowing you off. We're not. It's just that we kind of figured we were only going to do like a few of your emails tonight, because because we had one voicemail we wanted to make sure we got in.
Oh, and on that note,
fellas, Corwin calling in again. I gotta say the whole thing with Joe, I completely 110% agree. It sucks sometimes that comic artists do not draw different body types. When she started showing up in those regular Lantern books away from Far Sector and they just draw her the little skinny thing, I was like, what happened to that thickness? I need you guys to say it like that too, that thickness. But yeah, I wish editorial would have been like, this is the blueprint for her. She's got to have this kind of body type to set her apart. So I agree with you guys. That's it. Keep doing what you're doing. Talk to you guys later.
Thickness.
That's THICCNESS. Just so y'all.
Or maybe NIZ.
What he's saying is she got that ass though.
Oh gosh. Oh, Chad. We went from his Green Arrow, Green Lantern kind parameters to that. Oh, Chad, you ignorant slut. No. But yeah, generally speaking, all humor aside, and it's probably not true, but that's why I said it half jokingly. It's like you almost think that some people out there who are artists who are not black probably think, oh my God, if I draw someone who's black with a big ass, I'm going to be called a racist, because even though the people who created the character drew her that way, it's just one of those things that, yeah, I mean, when Joe's standing in front of you, there's no difference, but when she turns around in Far Sector, yeah, you can tell. So it stands out more because we just revisited the original creators and doing that and revisiting Joe and the way she was presented, and then we've seen her since, and yeah, she looks good. Like we mentioned, she looks good. She looked good in that Kyle backup story, but when she doesn't look like Joe from behind. So it's just one of those. It's the lack of consistency, and while yes, it may seem like a way over, maybe overly voyeuristic approach to this, it's really no different ultimately than the fact that when the artist in the Alan Scott book came friggin' draw the ring either on the right hand or the right finger on the right hand. In this case, the right hand being the left hand, but right, right is incorrect.
Yeah, I just there's something wrong with being overly PC, I guess, is the thing, because you remember that Spider-Woman variant cover that Marvel ended up censoring like couple, I want to say like 7, maybe 10 years ago.
I remember the concept of it. I can't honestly tell you. I 100% remember what the actual picture was.
All right, 2 seconds. I know I can find it. Okay. Yeah. So 2014, I was right. 10 years ago, Milo Manara, Italian artist, did a Spider-Woman variant cover where she was crawling around the top of a building, like over her ledge. And since she was crawling, her face was to the reader and her ass was up in the air, right? And they censored it because they really did it was like a super deep cut, I guess, because it's a skin tight outfit. So her ass cheeks are like spread or whatever. So like I can, this cover is kind of like an iffy because like he drew things so tight you can see the dimples in her lower back and the curve of her spine and stuff, the indentation of where her spine would be. I sent you the link in our chat so that you can see and remember this cover. But so like from the amount of detail that he put into how skin tight this suit is, I kind of get it. But also, if you were to just draw a spider person in this pose, it makes sense. So like there's always too much of an editorial eye on some of this stuff. And I think, yes, Joe should be drawn according to how Jamal Campbell and company created her because that's how she's supposed to look. Like, you wouldn't change her hairstyle or anything, right? Because that's a part of who she is and how she was raised and everything like that. You wouldn't suddenly make her straight haired, right? Because it's too difficult to draw that hairstyle or whatever. Or if you're a white person drawing a black person's hairstyle, does that somehow also make you racist or whatever? Like, I never understood the idea of looking at the way a character was designed by the person who created them, who also happens to be black, by the way, and deciding, oh, I don't want to be racist by drawing her too thick. Like, now, was that the choice? We don't know. We're obviously speculating on that. Like, did they make the choice to draw Joe differently because of potentially being too sexist or whatever? We don't know, but we kind of assume that's what it is. That's probably not a fair assumption.
Well,
but
I don't want to make. I say that from with a little bit of tongue in cheek, but I say it from the perspective that in the environment that we live in, and considering how most of the people in the industry, where they lean, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that at least somebody, maybe not in this instance, but somebody in the back of their heads think, wow, if I draw this character, this ethnic character, a certain way, that I may be accused of, or I leave myself open. It's stupid. But a lot of things when it comes to that mentality is stupid. But so we're not absolutely saying, oh, yeah, we're confident that. No, I'm just saying that. Would it be surprising if we found out in some instance, whether it was this artist or someone else who was drawing Joe, made a conscious choice of, or it could be just as likely that they never really paid much attention. They didn't read much Far Sector, or they didn't pay much attention to how she was drawn. But you could but you could say, hey, that's just as racist as the other side. It's the other side of anything was. So it's all stupid. But yeah, at least it just stands out like a sore thumb because we had 12 issues of her drawn one way, and that was our intro to the character. So that's how when she was created. So. She, like you said, like her hair, that's kind of part of her, even though the hair she can change a little more easily anyway.
I'll backtrack a little bit of what I said about the Spider-Woman image, because I'm looking at it and it illustrates the point I was making, but also it's literally been 10 years because I was remembering it in my head and I was remembering the pose. I don't remember the details, but like, yeah, he went so far as to put back dimples above her ass and all of this other stuff. This suit is too tight.
Yeah, but the Spider-Woman logo was covering a lot of that.
Well, no. I know that's the choice editorial made to help edit the image after there was.
Oh, they did. Okay, so that was. So originally it was going to be more stamped. First of all, let's be honest. Overall, the art's not good anyway. I mean, it may be a nice dumper by itself, but I mean, my God, that artwork pretty much is really bad, especially the face. It's not. It's like so. It's not. Which again makes you, if we're living in the world of speculation, it makes you wonder, hey, maybe that's why he went out on the limb to draw something like that, because if he's got one area of specialty, he's got to compensate for the rest. It's like, I can draw a really nice ass.
I've never heard of spandex in my life that clung to the skin like this does. But anyways, yeah, that was funny because we were dancing around it and Cora was just like, look, she got the thickness. All right, we got to see it.
Thank you, Corwin. Oh God.
I need you to leave a voicemail with a little clip that we can play every now and then when we see Joe, and we can just drop it in the episode and you just say that ass though.
Oh God. Poor Corwin. This may be our final episode, but hey, at least we're going out with a bang.
We're canceled. That's it.
Yeah.
Although if this is the one that does it, it makes no sense.
it would just show you the pure moronic aspect of being canceled. When we dodged the bullets on so many other subjects, but we're talking about the artistic interpretation of a fake character's ass. And it's like, yes, that's the one. Well, actually, to be fair, it probably would be more Eurobonics than the ass getting us fired, but nonetheless, it is kind of all related. So I suppose. Oh God, it was a good run. We made it past 550. I guess that's more than anybody could ever imagine.
Hey, when someone who's not familiar with us finds us and we go, oh, they've been around since, for 15 years. And people go, wow, 15 years. Look, whether we're canceled or not, that's still a great milestone. So
And until Assgate brought us down. Oh, God. I think we're done.
I think we are. So if people want to reach out to us, how do they do that?
LanternCast@gmail.com, LanternCast.com. You can follow us. I just feel like laughing. I don't know why. I'm avoiding Facebook because that'll put me over the edge. We should go back and find when the anniversary of that was. We should honor that every year.
Speaking of tight outfits.
Yeah, oh God! If you can see that in that outfit, there's a whole lot of problems going on. You can follow us on Twitter #GLCast. Like us on Facebook too, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, no Stitcher, Podbean, whatever platform you listen to us on. Please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a text or a voicemail, 708 Lantern, and let us know what you think.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.